All You Can Lead is a channel about leadership and self-development topics.
Hello everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a topic on top of a lot of people's mind, presentation and public speaking. When I ask my friends and colleagues, how do you feel about presentation? Almost every single person would tell me it's kind of scary, they're nervous about it. Presentation is really critical for our career development and brand building. Is there a way to really make it less scary? And the answer is yes. Today, I'm going to talk to you about
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
That would make presentation much easier for all of you. So starting with A. A stands for anxiety management. So in terms of mitigations, first, you wanted to really recognize that presentation is a high-stake conversation, and you seem to only have one shot, and that's perfectly normal when you feel nervous about a presentation. You should not blame yourself for being nervous. And the next step is to really look at presentation differently. If you look at a longer term horizon, you would realize that you have a lot of different shots to do well in presentation and get better and better. And lastly, when you feel nervous and anxious, it's really difficult for yourself to stop feeling nervous and anxious. One easy way for you to really change and influence your feelings is through physical activities. Jumping jack, right? And that really helps to make your blood flow, and they will even shout to really cheer themselves up. So those physical activities really helps to make you feel more excited and enthusiastic about your upcoming presentations.
If this video is helpful for you, please give me a thumb up and click on the bell button to subscribe. So the next letter is B, and B stands for busy. Your audience is always busy. When we measure success of a presentation, we wanted to measure by how much the audience took away from your presentation instead of how much you spoke. How I usually wanted to run presentation is I want to focus on first, catch the audience attention. So after you have caught the attention of the audience, you wanted to really communicate your key message in a super simple way that removes the cognitive load from the audience. You're not asking them to parse through all the information you presented and trying to figure out what you're trying to say. You just tell them directly. So after you lay out the key message, you wanted to really reiterate it several times throughout the presentation. And the next letter is C, stands for content. So when you prepare for a presentation, content is really important. And the easiest way for me to structure a presentation, and I wanted to recommend to all of you, is to follow this framework. Why, what, and how, right? So you want to start with why. Why this presentation is worth your time. Have a really compelling story to catch people's attention, or use data to back up your argument. So after you explain why, you wanted to go deep into the what. Right? Really explain what is the topic that you wanted to present today and what is the framework you wanted to introduce or the initiative details that you want people to take away with. After you talk about the what, then you go into the how, right? What is the action plan? What are the milestones? How do you plan to execute? Don't forget to close out with the call to actions to make sure that people actually know what you want them to do. All right, so let's watch the beginning of Ric's presentation about 3 lessons he learned from a plane crash.
So imagine a big explosion as you climb through 3,000 feet. Imagine a plane full of smoke. Imagine an engine
Very
going clack,
unique
clack, clack,
experience.
clack, 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 clack.
Super
Sounds
visual.
scary. Well, I had a unique seat that
Got your
day.
attention
I
immediately.
was sitting in 1D. I was the only one who could talk to the flight attendants. So I looked at them right away, and they said, no problem. We probably hit some birds. The pilot had already turned the plane around, and we weren't that far. You could see Manhattan. 2 minutes later, 3 things happened at the same time. The pilot lines up the plane with the Hudson River. It's usually not the route. He turns off the engines. Now imagine being on a plane with no sound. And then he says 3 words, as unemotional 3 words as I've ever heard. He says, brace for impact. I didn't have to talk to the flight attendant anymore. I could see in her eyes, it was terror. Life was over.
See, the beginning is super short. How long is it? It's only a minute and a half, but he got your attention immediately and you really want to know what's going to happen. Also, he laid out this really simple reason why you should listen to his presentation is because he had gone through this unique life experience that most of the people would not have an opportunity to experience. And then I want you to watch the next clip of his presentation and focus really on his voice delivery.
And I want to share with you 3 things I learned about myself that day.
Really clear structure, 3 things.
I learned that it all changes in an instant. We have this bucket
right?
list, we have these things we want to do in life.
Volume.
And I thought about all the people I wanted to reach out that I didn't. All the fences I wanted to mend. All the experiences I wanted to have and I never did.
Versus volume.
As I thought about that, later on I came up with a saying, which is, I collect bad wines. Because if the wine is ready and the person is there, I'm opening it.
Focus.
I no longer want to postpone anything in life. And that urgency, that purpose has really changed my life. The second thing I learned that day, and this is as we clear the George Washington Bridge, which was by not a lot.
One of the common mistakes I found people make in public speaking is really using a monotone. The goal here is really try to speak like a normal person. You wanted to vary your volume, your pace, your pitch constantly throughout this presentation so that your voice are actually helping the audience follow you throughout the entire presentation. You're trying to deliver your message using multiple channels of information, including verbal communication and nonverbal communications. So in the next part of the presentation, I really want you to focus on the energy, the infectious energy that he used to connect with the audience and really communicate his points.
I thought about, wow, I really feel one real regret. I've lived a good life. In my own humanity and mistakes, I've tried to get better at everything I've tried. But in my humanity, I also allow my ego to get in. And I regretted the time I wasted in things that did not matter with people that matter. And I thought about my relationship with my wife, with my friends.
He was almost crying.
And after, as I reflected on that, I decided to eliminate negative energy from my life. It's not perfect. It's a lot better. I've not had a fight with my wife in 2 years. It feels great. I'm no longer trying to be right. I choose to be happy.
So he's telling a personal story and use his emotions to really communicate this point of feeling authentic and don't let his negative emotions get in the way of his relationships. So it's super effective. So when you do your presentation, you really wanted to demonstrate your passion about the topic, that you really deeply care about this topic. It's super authentic to you, and using your feelings and personal experience, sometimes a little bit of vulnerabilities to really connect with the audience and build that credibility. So that's E, stands for energy. F stands for filler words. Filler words is a type of language that we created to really fill in the awkward gap between meaningful words, right? When I say right, that's kind of a filler words. When you look at the transcript of Ric's TED Talk, there's 0 filler words. So clearly he has been practicing not saying filler words at all. But when we first get started, it's really difficult for us to get rid of filler words immediately. So what we often do is, when you wanted to say a filler words, try to replace it with a pause. Pauses are really important and natural in communications. When you talk to your friend, you don't just talk and talk and talk and talk and don't stop. So in public speaking, it's the same idea. The more natural your conversation, your presentation is, the better. So that in the last part, focus on his gesture, what his body movement looks like.
The third thing I learned, and this is as your mental clock starts going 15, 14, 13, you can see the water coming. I'm saying,
His
please
hands
blow
are
water.
moving.
right? I don't want this thing to break in 20 pieces like you've seen in those documentaries. And as we're coming down, I had a sense of, wow, dying is not scary. It's almost like we've been preparing for it our whole lives. But it was very sad. I didn't want to go. I love my life. And that sadness really framed in one thought, which is, I only wish for one thing. I only wish I could see my kids grow up. About a month later, I was in a performance by my daughter, first grader, not much artistic talent yet.
Humor again.
And I'm bawling. I'm crying like a little kid.
He's acting out crying like a
And
little
it made
kid.
all the sense in the world to me. I realized at that point, by connecting those two dots, that
He's
the only
trying
thing
to
that
act
matters
as
in my
connecting
life
dots.
is being a great dad. Above all, the only goal I have in life is to be a good dad. I was given the gift of a miracle of not dying that day. I was given another gift, which was to be able to see into the future and come back and live differently. I challenge you guys that are flying today. Imagine the same
call to
thing
actions.
happens on your plane, and please don't. But imagine, and how would you change? What would you get done that you're waiting to get done because you think you'll be here forever? How would you change your relationships and the negative energy in them? And more than anything, are you being the best parent you can? Thank you.
So let's go back to his gestures. When we're thinking about using gesture, like nonverbal communication in a presentation, the rule of thumb is the more naturally you act, just like a normal conversation with friends and families, the more effective your presentations is. Right? So when you're thinking about using your hands and your arms, you wanted to do two things. First, you don't want it to lock them, right? So you don't talk to your mom or your friends like this. When you relax, you actually put your hands next to your thigh, right? And just let them relax next to your thigh as much as possible. And the second thing is you should use big gestures to highlight some points that you make and even act them out a little bit, right? Connecting the two dots, 15, 14, 13, really counting and using the hands to help with the countings. And then when it comes to the feet gestures, don't really stand there and don't move at all. Obviously, these days, most of the presentation are via video conference or when you're sitting down, so you don't really need to worry about the foot that much. But when you're actually standing in front of an audience in a room or when you are on a stage, really be careful about your feet and don't really fix them on the same place. So that's the ABCDEFG of presentation. Just to summarize, A is anxiety management. B is really engage very busy audiences. C stands for content. Use why, what, how to structure your presentation. And D is delivery. Think about your voice. How do you vary your pace, volume, pitch to really facilitate the message delivery. So E stands for energy. So use your energy to help the audience understand your emotions and feelings and authenticity you have about this topic. F stands for filler words. And your goal is to replace filler words with silence. Lastly, G, which stands for gestures. So try to use your hand and feet naturally to really communicate effectively in a presentation.
Thank you all for watching this